Hey everyone! Today we're diving into something massive, something truly epic. We're talking about the biggest democratic exercise on the entire planet, the Indian election system. Now, I know it can sound complicated, but trust me, it's a huge part of your future. So let's break it all down.
You think about huge concerts or massive sporting events. Well, forget all that. The largest single event in India, and honestly the world, is our general election. It's way more than just politics. It's like a festival of democracy where almost 1 billion people get to shape their future. The scale is just mind-blowing.
So in just a few years, a lot of you are going to be walking into a polling booth for the very first time. Kind of cool, right? But have you ever stopped to wonder how this gigantic system actually works? And more importantly, what's your role going to be when it's finally your turn? Well, that's exactly what we're going to figure out today.
Okay, so to understand any big game, you've got to know who the referee is, right? In the massive game of Indian democracy, there's one super powerful referee that makes sure everything is played by the rules.
And here it is, the Election Commission of India, or the ECI. Its job is so critical that it's written right into our constitution. Think of the ECI as the ultimate independent umpire. Its one and only mission is to make sure every single election, from the local level to the national, is completely free and fair for everyone.
Now, the ECI has grown and changed over the years. A huge moment happened back in 1989. The voting age was dropped from 21 down to 18. That meant millions and millions of young people, just like you will be, suddenly had the right to vote. To handle that massive new workload and to make sure decisions were always balanced, the ECI was expanded from just one person to the 3-member team it is today.
All right, so that's the ref. Now let's get to the most important player in this whole thing, you, the voter. So how do you go from being a student to being a voter? It's actually a lot simpler than you might think. Here it is, your journey to the polling booth in 3 simple steps. Step 1, you turn 18. Easy enough. Step 2, you get your name onto the official voters list, which is also called the electoral roll. And Step 3, you get this awesome thing called the Elector's Photo Identity Card, or EPIC for short. And this is it, your EPIC card. Seriously, think of it as your passport to democracy. It's not just another ID card. It proves you have the right to vote, and it helps prevent any kind of fraud, making sure that when you vote, it's your voice, and only your voice, that gets counted. Okay, so you're registered, you've got your card. What happens next? Well, an election isn't just a single day. Not even close. It's a whole cycle of events, kind of like a marathon that starts way before you ever step into that booth. The whole race kicks off when the ECI blows the starting whistle and announces the dates. Then candidates file their nomination papers to compete. After that comes the loud, colorful, and super intense campaigning period. This is when parties release their manifestos. That's basically their public book of promises, telling everyone what they'll do if they win. Then, of course, is the main event, polling day. And finally, the nail-biting finish, the counting of the votes and finding out who won. Let's just zoom in on that one crucial moment, polling day. This is the day when all the speeches, all the rallies, all the promises, they all stop. And the power, it shifts completely. It moves from the politicians to you, the voter. The polling booth is pretty much a sacred space where your voice is finally heard.
Now, when you walk into a polling booth, you probably won't see old-school paper ballots and ink pads. Instead, you'll see this setup. These are the modern tools of Indian democracy, the electronic voting machine, or EVM, and the VVPET.
Using the EVM is incredibly simple. You just look for the name and the symbol of the candidate you want to vote for, and you press the blue button right next to it. That's it. Click. Your vote is instantly locked in.
But wait, how do you really know your vote went to the right person? Great question, and that's where this other machine, the VVPAT, comes in. As soon as you press the button on the EVM, the VVPAT prints a little slip of paper. You can see the symbol of the candidate you chose for a few seconds before it drops into a sealed box. It's physical proof that your vote was counted correctly, which is absolutely key for building trust in the whole system. And, hey, there's one more important button I want to show you, right at the very end of the list. It says NOTA, which stands for none of the above. If you look at all the candidates and feel like none of them deserve your vote, you can press this button. It's your right to officially say, nope, not happy with any of these choices. Okay, so we know how to vote, but who are we actually voting for? That brings us to the players in the game, the teams competing for the prize, the political parties.
In India, you can basically sort parties into 2 main buckets.
First, you've got your national parties. These are the big players that have a presence and influence in many states all across the country. Then you have regional parties, which are super powerful but usually in just one specific state or region. Both types play a massive role in our democracy.
Now, here's where things can get really interesting. The goal for every party is to win a majority of seats so they can form the government. But what happens if the votes are so split up that nobody gets a clear win? What then?
Well, that situation has a name. It's called a hung parliament if it's a national election, or a hung assembly at the state level. You can think of it like a soccer match ending in a draw. No single team has won, so no one can form a government all by themselves.
So what's the solution? Teamwork. This is when different parties decide to join forces. They create a coalition government, combining all their winning seats to get past that majority number. They have to agree to share power, which means you can get a government that represents a wider range of views. But, on the other hand, they can sometimes be a little less stable. It's a really common and fascinating part of how our politics works.
So we've covered the referee, the rules of the game, and all the different players. But let's bring it all back to the single most important person in this entire system. You guessed it, you. Why does any of this stuff really matter?
Let's just quickly recap the big takeaways, okay? Our whole democracy stands on the foundation of free and fair elections. We have a neutral referee, the ECI, making sure the rules are followed. Political parties are the bridge that connects us, the people, to the government. But the most important thing to remember, always, is that this entire massive, complex system boils down to the power of one single vote. Your vote.
You know, this quote just hits the nail on the head. Parties aren't just random groups trying to win. They're supposed to be the link. They take our collective worries, our hopes, our needs, and they're meant to turn them into actual government policy, connecting us to the people who make the big decisions.
And that really brings us to the final thought. The system is all there. The process is clear, but the direction our country moves in, that depends entirely on the choices that voters make. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. A few years from now, when you're holding that epic card and you walk into that polling booth, what issues are going to matter the most to you?